straight talk with no chaser. Rhea gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk to no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives the dying people hope. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on IntellectualRadio.com, an iHeartRadio station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris. I'm so glad to be with everyone this evening. Before we get started with tonight's segment, I want to again thank Mona Lisa McGee, who is the person who tailor-made our faces today on the Drive at 5. She is a Black-owned business person. She represents Flory Roberts Products, as well as some other things. She's also a licensed esthetician. So, Mona Lisa McGee, MAGEE, look her up on Facebook or go to colormedirect.com/tailored. Now, on to the business. I have a really special guest with me tonight that I want to really get to know a lot better, by the name of Patrick Brutus.
How you doing, Rhea?
I'm fine. Now, we're not even going to tell the people who haven't seen our postings yet what you're trying to do, what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk a little bit firstly about who you are. So let's say, where were you raised?
So before we get into all that, I do want to say thank you for inviting me into the studio today. I'm very happy to be here. I want to say good evening to all your followers and listeners and those following on Facebook and online right now streaming. And your last guest did a very good job.
Thank you.
You look very nice.
Thank you.
So a little bit of background on where I'm from. I was born in the city, but raised in Will County, raised in South Suburbs. I grew up in University Park, Illinois, and I'm an 80s baby. And proud alumni of Cremoni High School, District 201U. Shout out to all my warriors out there. After completing high school successfully, I went on to college, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Oh, my alma mater.
All right. There we go. Oski Wow Wow, ILL.
I.
All right, there we go.
See, that's a shame.
That's it. We had to prove it up now.
That's it. And I've been gone a long time, but okay.
Some things never change.
That's it.
And so I studied business administration, graduated there in 4.5 years, got out class 92, and I started a career in public service. I did 11 years at the Illinois Department of Transportation, where I was an engineering technician for 8 years, worked on virtually every infrastructure project between I-55, I-80, 394, I-57, from Joliet all the way out east to South Holland, all the way as north as in the city, south side, as far south as Joliet and, Mokina, Frankfurt. So I've worked
the collar counties,
Will County. So I've worked extensively on infrastructure projects that improve, change the conditions in which we live, improve the quality of life, create jobs, and utilized public dollars privately to make sure that folks' infrastructure, transportation, bridges, roads and bridges. And then for 3 years, during my 11-year tenure with IDOT, I was the land acquisition coordinator for the third airport project from the Division of Aeronautics. And so that...
Tell people a little bit more about what that means, because I like to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding.
Sure.
Some people don't want to ask because they don't want to look like they don't know. Well, I don't know everything.
So
please
good
elaborate.
follow-up. So the third airport project, Rhea, is perhaps the state's largest economic engine project. We are proposing, the state of Illinois is proposing to acquire land and build an airport in Peatone. This projection is 10,000 jobs created, congestion of air traffic would be relieved in the region. We would have another economic engine for the south suburbs and Southland. And this is the project that everyone endorses. Will County is now on board. South suburbs are on board. Congressman Kelly's on board. And now we are, in a flux right now because the governor has held up a lot of state dollars. And so that project is in flux right now.
Now, what county is Peatone in?
Will.
It's still in Will County.
Yeah, Will County.
Now, yes, Governor Rauner's election and subsequent administration has created a bottleneck in state funding. Right.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking about the third airport, because many years ago I lived in Jesse Jackson's district, and that was one of his big pushes.
Champion projects, right.
And for some reason, even then, they could not get it off the ground. Do you know what held that up? Because this has been many, many, many years of discussing it.
So I would say that that project was the issue of a turf battle. The project was in the 11th congressional district, Jesse's district. Congressman Jackson's district extended in the 2nd district all the way out to Will County borderline. University Park was the only village in the Will County portion of that area that was part of the coalition that Jesse Jackson built with all the South suburban townships and villages in his 2nd district. So that was always the subject of a turf battle, not only between Jesse Jackson, 2nd congressional congressman, but also between the 11th district as well as the folks who did not want the project within the Peatone community and then the state. So there were multiple levels of factors at play that prevented the progress of that project moving forward back then. I still, as congressman, when I get elected, I will support that project, work with Congressman Kelly to bring that project to fruition, and hopefully we can get our governor on board. So let's get our governor on board right now and free up those dollars and make sure we can create jobs out there in South Lane.
Free up the dollars for the daycares and everything else.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to that
Right.
another moment. Now, so when we're looking at you sitting here and you're speaking, so what is it exactly that you're going to do?
So let's also catch up on my timeline here, and let's talk about what I'm doing now. And so for the last 9.5 years, Rhea, I have been a economic development coordinator at the City of Chicago in the Department of Planning and Development. And for the last 9.5 years, I have worked extensively on transforming communities, worked to address affordable housing, worked in a program that exclusively uses the TIF dollars to subsidize our companies and their training needs. And recently I've been doing small business development within many of our city's corridors. And so I've been doing this professionally for 20 years at the state and city level. I've worked extensively throughout the entire region of the 1st Congressional District, as it were, looking at the city, South Cook, and Will. And what I'm doing, and thank you for asking, I'm running for Congress. That's my big announcement here today. I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives. I want to represent the people of the 1st Congressional District. And I think it's time to unplug, restart, rebuild, reconnect, and have a professional who understands how to complete projects from concept to close. And I think it's that kind of value-added level of experience that we need this time, and we can't be misled.
And with that, we're going to take a break on the Straight No Chaser show on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Radio Station. We'll be right back. Straight No Chaser Show on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Radio Station. I'm here with Patrick Brutus, who is running for U.S. Congress of the 1st District?
1st Congressional District.
First Congressional District. Tell our viewers and listeners exactly what are the boundaries of the 1st Congressional District.
Very good question, Rhea. Thank you. I'll let everyone here know the 1st District boundaries. It starts a little bit in Hyde Park, actually, about 35th Street, Bronzeville. It snakes through Hyde Park. And fun fact number one, the President of the United States' home is in the district, and so he would be my constituent after November 2016. And so if you look at Stony Island as a boundary, and you look at I-57 as a boundary, so you're going to be snaking over through some communities west of Stony Island, Avalon, Chatham, Grand Crossing. Then you look at some of Roseland, some of West Chesterfield, and then you jump over I-50, Dan Ryan.
Any Morgan Park?
Morgan Park, yes. So it's going to be, if you look at going down Vincennes, so We'll get over there. But then you have the communities of Englewood, Greater Southwest, and Auburn Gresham, and then you work your way down south from, like, let's say from that side of the Dan Ryan going south, and you get into Evergreen Park, Oak Lawn, and then you go into the south suburban communities, Palos, Alsip, Orland, Tinley, and those are South Cook, northern Will County areas, and you go further south, and it goes as far south as Elwood, which is right around Joliet, Mokina, and Frankfort. So it's 200,000 square feet. Over 700,000 constituents, and so it's a very large district. And the district, fun fact number two, is 51% black, 9% Hispanic, and so you've got, due to 1965 Voter Rights Act, we have a district that is comprised to make sure that we have a majority population, and we have a greater opportunity to ensure that, the dominant population within that district is represented by their constituency. So by that, someone in a dominant culture, in a dominant community. So we have a great opportunity, obviously, to elect an African American.
Now, and I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but I also, like I said earlier, don't want to assume what people know. Who is the incumbent in this district?
So currently, the 1st District is led by U.S. Representative Bobby Rush, who was elected in 1993. So he has been there for 22 years. He has been the congressman. He has been through the redistricting when it used to be a 97 square mile district, which was primarily focused in on the Chicago and South suburban areas. And now in 2010, it was redistricted, and it includes now this extra additional land assembly for our South. Yes.
Okay.
Bobby Rush, 93, 22 years.
And speaking as someone who's been around just a touch longer than you have, just a touch, I look at a lot of our political leadership, quote unquote, and quite a few of them, especially on that level, have been in office for a long time. And one of the issues that I hear from people when they talk, off camera, is that they've been here for so long, but what have they done?
Right.
So when I look at a young man like you who's running, what drove you to even want to do this? So
I'm glad you asked that question. It's a very fair question. Folks will look and say, well, what is this young guy doing? It's not his time. It's not his turn. And unfortunately, you're absolutely correct. In our community, we have a number of elected officials who have been in their spaces for 15, 10, 20, maybe even longer. And unfortunately, we don't have a development of pipeline leadership that is coming through our community where we can actually see the progression of who would lead us next. And so as a father, as a husband, as a homeowner, and Rhea, I have 3 children. I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old, a boy and 2 girls. And the conditions in which we live in today, I'm very concerned about their future. I'm very concerned about the safety in our communities. I'm very concerned about what we see as a normal occurrence of crime in our neighborhoods. I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned. And it's easy for us to give up. It would be very easy for me to just relocate to Georgia somewhere, or somewhere where the statistics aren't what they are today. But I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to cut and run. I certainly don't want to run away from the job that I have, which is to raise my family where I'm at and to make the best of our conditions and raise my family. I'm not going to run away from that responsibility and take the easy way out. I'm going to be a valuable member of my community, which I've done, which I am proud to say that I've been part of the Grand Crossing Advisory Council, where in my neighborhood, I'm a member of the Park District, where we make decisions based on how we attract folks to our community to use open space. I'm very proud to say that I was a former board member of the Henry Booth House, which looks at early childhood advocacy and education for 0 to 5, our youngsters who, when we prepare them for kindergarten, we get them through looking at the disadvantaged communities. We have over 40 Head Start programs. Quick shout out to Scott Perkins, who perhaps is one of the best CEOs in the city, who leads that organization. I'm very proud to say that I'm a member of and recruited to help lead the Chicago Young and Powerful group. Young and Powerful is an organization that in the cycles of 2008 and 2012 raised over $300,000 for our president, Barack Obama. We're very proud for that relationship and affiliation with him to make sure that we had the right policymaker in place to really push the right kinds of laws that we need in this country that really look at how to really increase the capacity of folks in underserved neighborhoods across America, whether it be through programs that have created jobs directly or indirectly, but nevertheless change the way we see the landscape in America, especially in Chicago. I'm very proud of those relationships, very proud of those affiliations, very proud of those partnerships. And so through that is a responsibility that we have. I live in Greater Grand Crossing. Very proud to be in that community. Lived in Washington Park before that. My children attend public schools in the district. I'm invested. I'm not going anywhere. And it's with that in mind, Rhea, that, again, I believe if we're going to unplug and start over and, look at how do we really advance what we're trying to accomplish in our communities, we need someone with the 21st century viewpoint and 21st century leadership. When the president leaves is when I'll serve. I'll take office in January 2017 if everything goes according to God's will and our plan. Who will be there to fight for the president's legacy policies, such as health insurance, such as creating safe and strong communities, looking at how do we change the platform of education and how we teach our children? Who's going to be there to lead us if it's not someone with an outlook of how do we look ahead to our future? So that's why I'm running.
What we're going to do, because I don't advocate, and you have not done this, I'm not saying it's you, I don't advocate that we're going to bash the incumbent. What we're going to do is we're going to enlighten people to
Absolutely.
the new upcoming change. Because like I said, I actually, while you were saying 15 years, I'm actually thinking of a couple of people that have been in office 30.
Mm-hmm.
Because I graduated from high school the same year that person got elected, and you're still sitting in that seat. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a terrible thing, but it is if I can't see any significant contribution you've made.
It's symbolic of their tenure as a elected official representing our community. If you look at the incumbent, you can see before that he was an alderman. So he was an alderman in the city council before he became a congressman. And he served 10 years in city council and once previously ran for mayor. And so he's been representing our community. And if you look at the boundaries of which he served, and you look at the conditions back then when he took office, and you look at today, and you look at other elected officials in their tenures, and you look at certain neighborhoods on the west side, if you look all around, we cannot see progressive change. We cannot see improvement in our communities. We cannot see the eradication of blight that we see in some of these neighborhoods where we have large tracts of land just vacant and the houses empty and folks dying and crying and trying. There should have been a better plan.
Because there has been a plan for everyone else's community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have H. Cortez's Money Moment, and we're going to continue talking with Patrick Brutus about the new change for Chicago on the Straight No Chaser Show on IntellectualRadio.com and iHeart Radio Station.
Straight No Chaser family. It's your boy, H. Cortez, the financial health mentor to the working class, and I'm coming to you with tonight's Money Moments. Tonight we have a very special edition of Money Moments, a holiday edition, and before I get into it, I want to take this time to wish each and every one of you at the sound of my voice a very glorious and happy, a merry Christmas and joyful holiday season. Guys, be safe out there. But tonight I want to talk to you about the attitude of gratitude. As we enter this season, we know that this is a season where we're gift giving, and a lot of times we are waiting to receive gifts. But I want to talk to you about the attitude of gratitude. Guys, before you can achieve a life of abundance, you have to first take time and give thanks for what it is that you have right now, this very second. I don't care if you are not where you want to be. I don't care if you are in a dark place right now. There is something in your life that you can give thanks for right now. Guys, the attitude of gratitude is very necessary if you plan on ever living a life of abundance, okay? Because I'm a Christian and I believe that God blesses us to be a blessing to other people. But in order for us to move from glory to glory, we have to always stop and give thanks for what it is that we have at this very moment. The challenges, the good times, the bad times, the ups and downs, all of those things have shaped and molded and made us who we are and giving us what it is that we have today. And you have to be grateful in the little things first if you want to be blessed with greater things. So exercise the attitude of gratitude. If you have not taken a moment to stop and give thanks for where you are today, even if you're in a place where you're not comfortable, you're in a place where you're not where you don't want to be at this very moment, you stop and you give thanks for what it is that you have and where you are right this moment. And then you can start figuring out, okay, where I am today, I'm not satisfied with. I want to move to another level. And if you're thankful for what you have, it is my belief that once you show that attitude of gratitude, then God will bless you and open doors to move you from glory to glory, from one level to the next. So guys, stop what you're doing right now. Give thanks for what you have and where you are, and watch how doors open for you to move you to that next level. Now, if you want a personal financial success system, then go to www.financialhealthmentor.com. You can partner with me and get your own financial success membership for just $12.95. So definitely check that out. You're checking out Rhea Ray and the Straight No Chaser Show. I'm your boy H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. And until I talk to you next week, be thankful and get your money up. Peace.
And we are back on the Straight No Chaser Show on IntellectualRadio.com, an iHeart radio station. I am here with Patrick Brutus, who is running for the 1st Congressional District for U.S. Congress in Illinois. Again, welcome and thank you for being on the show.
Mm-hmm. So happy to be here.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions that have been fed through. We have people that text, we have people that, sometimes you see comments on the screen, everything.
Oh, yeah.
So in view of the pandemonium that is Chicago right now politically, what do you, feel about Mayor Rahm Emanuel's not just responsibility for what has happened in the police department, but also, and this is a question a lot of people are afraid to ask, what was the responsibility of the Black Congressional Group, Congress, whatever they call themselves, in the automatic race, as far as, do we as Black people serving a district that has some Black people, maybe not all, mm-hmm. like you were talking about, your district is only 51%, but even as on a human rights level,
right.
Do we have a responsibility to ask certain questions?
Absolutely. And, this has troubled me since it's been revealed. Now, I have to admit that when this issue came up, last year, It went right past me because I don't remember the news being covered such that covered this incident to the point that we're seeing it today. And so when it was debated in City Council in 2014, everybody sat on their hands. We can see that today. The transcripts prove to us that everybody sat on their hands. Now, what you have, Rhea, is you have an unprecedented settlement agreement without the city being party to a lawsuit. The city was not sued. Family went to make a negotiating agreement. Okay, that was their plan. But the Black Caucus, who is now screaming, that they were misled, that they didn't understand. And to me, you had two opportunities to put the water back in the boat, stop the leaking right here. It was the Finance Committee when they discussed this thing. And that day at the Finance Committee, and I'm going to just educate your listeners just for a second here.
Please.
On that day at the Finance Committee was the same day that they were talking about the settlement for the Kotzman case. The Kotzman case is the famous case where the Daley kid,
the nephew of the former Mayor Daley.
Right, exactly. That incident happened resulting in the death of this young kid. That day they were settling that
both of
lawsuit. Them. Also, that same day was the Laquan McDonald family, offer to settle this thing for $5 million. Now, nobody asked any substantive questions. Our Black Caucus then and our Black Caucus today slightly changed because there were some elections, but we had attorneys on the Black Caucus. You had 4. You had the 6th Ward Representative, the 21st Ward Representative, the 5th Ward Representative, and you had the I forget, but you had 4 attorneys that were members of the Black Caucus. If they didn't catch this issue that affected the Black community because one of our children, again, was shot at the hands of unsupervised, out-of-control rogue police officers, so we have to call it what it is. These police officers were not acting according to the manual. They killed one of our children. They had an opportunity to speak up about that situation at the Finance Committee. There was no conversation whatsoever that went in depth to find out the root of this issue. And then they had an opportunity to speak on the record at the City Council when they took the vote to pass this settlement agreement. Again, silence. So thank God for the diligent journalists who did the FOIA request, which is a Freedom of Information Act, which is the way they can find out information when they're trying to not provide it to the public at large. And so they were able to discover this information, saw the video. The judge, thank goodness for the judge, who decided to allow this tape to be released to the public. And now everybody's in scramble mode a year later, where today we still have attorneys who are telling us, I went to a community meeting about 2 weeks ago, they told us that, well, we acted in the best interest of Chicago by voting for the settlement, because if not, they could have sued the city for $20, $30, $40, $50 million. So I don't know if anybody buys this argument, Rhea, but I stood up there and I said, I would have preferred that this family would have sued the city for $20 million, $100 million, because apparently $5 million is not enough money for these police officers to stop killing our children. It's not enough of a deterrent. Now, you asked earlier, what do we feel about the mayor and who's to blame? In any organization, right here in this radio station, there is a person at the top.
Earl's the person at the top.
There is always a person at the top of any organization.
Yes.
If you go high enough, there's always one guy. It always comes down to one individual, as high as you can go. And in this city, the mayor is the ultimate person in charge. He is the person that appoints the CHA people. He appoints the Park District people. He appoints the CTA people. He appoints his commissioners. He appoints the police department, the superintendent. He appoints. He has the power of appointment. And so, wonderful opportunity to amass power. But you cannot be the cook and get all the ingredients and not want to drink the soup that you made. So when you point at who is responsible, I mean, ultimately the mayor is responsible. And I think he said he accepts responsibility.
Yes, he has said
However, what we have is unfortunately, we have the Black Caucus, the people that represent us in our community. And we are harmed by this incident. We are still being harmed. And we are affected by this because we all want safe communities. We can't fire all the police because we still need people to police our neighborhoods. We still need safety.
Let me ask you this.
I'm upset about it.
Listen, I don't even want to get into how upset.
To me, these are election issues.
They are. When we look at voter responsibility, because to me, and I am guilty of this myself, I did not look to see what my then alderman was doing. I since moved to another district. I'm still in Chicago, another ward. And I liked and still do like her as a person. But I was very disturbed that, like you said, no questions were asked. I did look at the transcripts. My question is...
It's amazing, isn't it?
If we spent, according to what I saw, from 2005 until 2015, $500 million to pay for police malfeasance. And yet 50 plus schools have been closed. I think they said there are only 2 black certified librarians in the Chicago public school system at this point. They're cutting out music programs. They're cutting out athletic programs.
These are the same programs that they sold us in 2012 as enrichment programs that our community and our children needed. Now they're cutting back.
But for $500 million in payoffs for police abuses, couldn't we have instead enhanced and expanded our education program with that money?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But let me tell you one thing, Rhea. And so, as congressman, I would look to actually carry the platform on my platform as education is one of the top 3 or 4 things that I'm advocating for is an increased ability to do better in our communities. There is a program that, unfortunately, the congressman that we have today is in a very good position as a ranking member on a committee that oversees the FCC, which is the Federal Commissions Exchange. They have a program called E-Rate. E-Rate is a program where you can actually bring home money to the school district. And in Chicago, we have one. But in the entire district, we have many school districts. You can bring home millions of dollars to immediately advance and upgrade these schools and get them into the 21st century. We're talking computers, whiteboards, smart tablets. We're talking about things that would, in our cases, in our neighborhoods, in the 1st District, Englewood, Washington Park, Woodlawn.
Yes.
We're talking about schools that are already poor infrastructure. We're talking about an opportunity for the congressman to bring home the bacon, to put education as a number 1 issue when the state itself and the city have problems with managing the money that is being directed at our schools. Because there's an imbalance there. And that would be one thing that I would do to make sure that we bring money home to upgrade our schools.
Now, because I have seen in California, and it's like looking at Star Trek versus the caveman era. When I look at some of the things I've seen in the California school system versus what I see in Chicago. Because they've been using smart boards, tablets, and all that. They were using that way back when.
Rhea, we've got to build a rocket ship. We've got to build a rocket ship.
I mean, seriously, because it's astonishing to me that you have so many educated people in positions of power that don't consider education to be important for anyone else's child. So you said that's one of your top platforms.
And I'll tell you why. Just let me jump. I know I'm cutting you off. Let me tell you why. As a proud Haitian American, we didn't get to that part, but I wanted to get to at least giving you a little bit more about my background and what makes me me and why I think the way I do. And, we're all part of our experiences, whether they be environmental or cultural. I'm a proud Haitian American. And in our community, education is the number 1 issue. Whether we are here in the States, in the diaspora, or back home, it is the way out. It is the way out. It is the way up. And I do not believe for one instant that good families across America, especially in Chicagoland, do not agree with that. They all agree that education is way out. But we're at a disadvantage when the people that we elect to change the policies and make laws and get the money for our schools to be upgraded so that we are on equal par with those in other areas. It's a missed opportunity. It's a huge missed opportunity for us to continue to rely on those who are not looking at the number 1 objective that we have, is to get our children out of these environments and move them on to college, like you and I had an opportunity back in the day. We want to make sure that people who are supposed to be advancing our interests are there to do it. And that's why I'm very passionate about education. Like, I don't like necessarily the way that the CPS is structured, where our kids have to take these tests to be getting into enrollment schools, when every school should be a selective enrollment school. Every school should be a top-notch academic program. Every school should have enrichment. Every school should be a premium choice opportunity for our children.
I agree. I have a coworker who's from the Boston area, and he was astonished moving here. He has a son, because he said there were standards for every school in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what your socioeconomic status was. It didn't matter what your ethnicity was. Every school had pretty much the same opportunities for you to learn. And Chicago, having had the magnet schools / selective enrollment, the charter schools now,
Mm-hmm.
which that's a whole nother jungle,
Mm-hmm.
and having then the neighborhood schools, which are basically the dumping ground for the children that can't get anywhere else, it's become a nightmare. And then you have, like I said, the South suburban districts that are operating on a different level, because they're dealing with a different funding source,
Right,
as far as their taxation base.
and traditionally their schools are higher performing than the city.
Yes.
And we have people running for the hills, leaving the city, going to the suburbs.
Because they just can't take it.
Absolutely.
Now, that's one of your main platforms. What's another one?
Economic development. We've got to look at how we need to improve the conditions in which we live all throughout this district, especially in the city part and some parts of the south suburbs, as we go not too deep south, but right next to, close to city proximity. We see factors that do not give confidence to business owners. We don't have the right kinds of jobs being created. We have vacant lots. We have disinvestment. And what we've got to do is we've got to stop this culture of separation. Now, the first district is Will County, South Cook, and Cook part of Chicago, South Side. We've got to stop this isolation where these three sections of the first district are working in silos. They're working separately. They're not working together. We've got to come up with a regional plan or regional economic development strategy that kind of unites all these sections of the first district. Because let me tell you, wouldn't it be fantastic, Rita, if we've had farm people in the Will County area who are living off the land and doing gardening and farming and crops and those things of nature, and investing in that area of agriculture? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a plan that immediately identified where we could sell those products in local stores in our communities, where we don't have to necessarily over rely on the development that occurs in the South Side, which is community gardens. Community gardens are fantastic, but if that's all we can look to do in our communities with our vacant lots, we're missing an opportunity to either repopulate our neighborhoods, increase our tax base, and bring affordable housing to those neighborhoods, or we're looking at opportunities for investors to come in and do retail economics. We're not looking at those globally. Now, I believe that with my public sector experience, 20 years in this business, looking at how do we improve the quality of life in all facets: community development, public health, infrastructure, economic development, job creation, training, small business development, affordable housing. These are things that I've done professionally. We need someone who understands that from a 40,000 feet perspective, and also can get down to the community level and understand what the people who are in these challenged areas need the most.
Let me throw this out to you. For those of you who are unfamiliar, my 9-to-5 job is as a Cook County Adult Probation Officer. And I do have a sizable amount of population that's falling into your district. One of the biggest issues we have is the inability for people who have felony convictions to find even substandard employment. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is trying. I'm not saying that. But for those that are trying, it is an uphill battle. You have the inability to get housing because Section 8 is automatically off limits, as well as you have landlords now who, when they run criminal background checks, will not rent to you. I can't find a job because people that have college degrees are working at Walmart. So what are they going to do for me? So when you have Because in your district, in the Chicago segment of your district,
absolutely.
you have a high population
Tell the
that
truth.
meets that
Tell the truth.
particular dynamic. What can be done to help that population to have some form of success as far as being self-sustaining?
Let's call it what it is. We're calling it a demographic of people who are underemployed, hard to employ, and unemployed. And what we've got to do differently here is we have to continue this program where we are looking at our ex-offenders and getting them jobs. We have to look at that. We can't over-rely on that because that's not a leg up into reducing their willingness to go back to the life of crime where they came from. Because honestly, these transitional jobs that pay $10 to $12 an hour is not too much of a deterrent for folks who now, when they come back to their communities and they look at the little young kids now who unfortunately are also in this life of crime, making $300, $400, $500 a day doing what they do. And then, these guys are trying to earn an honest living. It's not enough. And unfortunately, I think the draw is still there for some. Now, what we've got to do here is we have a huge opportunity. And I'll take, for example, what's going on today. We have everybody protesting the police brutality, and they should. And I support our young people all over Chicago who are taking an active role in leadership right now and showing us the big can do with their almighty energy. And that's what we need, energy. And I appreciate the young people. But as a community, we've got to have an agenda of what do we do, where do we go next, because we have the leverage. While now policymakers are looking at what can we do to satisfy the black community. How about this? We have 50 some odd schools that are closed, shuttered, unoccupied. Give us some of those school buildings. Give us some of that money. Let us have some resources, and I'll tell you what we can do. We can then collapse a time frame of which the people who are now in that demographic of hard to employ, underemployed, and unemployed, re-educate them into becoming entrepreneurs. Make us responsible for, in our own community, taking these unutilized buildings and creating business accelerator spaces for us to now promote economic development. Create jobs, create the leg up for these individuals and everyone else who's an aspiring entrepreneur. We have to do better. And as congressmen, we can support those folks who are then now doing 501c3s, or we can appropriate dollars to bring home to support these businesses so that now we have support from Washington. And not an over-reliance on the same old kinds of programs that folks in the city and the suburbs are looking at in terms of a temporary $11, $12 per hour unsustainable job, because it does not improve the quality of life. It doesn't even really meet the living wage. And so we've got to create a whole new generation of entrepreneurs, business owners, that they can take the pride to uplift themselves. They can take the real opportunity to increase their economic situation and build revenue. And we've got to do better. We've got to have someone with a 21st century vision for that. We've got to have someone with leadership potential and skills and a track record of doing it professionally.
You spoke earlier about TIF dollars, and I know on a local level, people throw the term around, but they don't really clearly understand what it means and how it's supposed to be utilized. Can you explain that, and how in some cases it may have been misused in your district?
So TIF program, which is tax increment financing, it's dollars that are used through the collection of real estate taxes, and everybody calls it a slush fund. And I think there are some misconceptions about the program. There are some negatives, there are some certain positives. But the way the law is written, you can only use it in the district where it is designated as a TIF district. Now, as congressmen, we have no say in the matter. This is a local vehicle to provide a resource. But I'll tell you what, in the city of Chicago, the program has been used expansively. And many times it has gone beyond the stated purpose. The stated purpose is to reduce the blight and obsolescence that we see in our community, which is vacant lots, broken buildings, and those kinds of things that are really an eyesore in the community. Also to do infrastructure. But we've seen it now that it has been used to subsidize companies' relocation costs to Chicago, where we've seen billionaires who don't need the money apply for it, get it, use it to create office space, and not really hire from the community. And so some aldermen get it. There are some good aldermen who understand the TIF program and have leveraged their influence to try to create local jobs. Everybody kind of doesn't always do it the right way, I think. But so I think overall it gets a negative spin. I think if we in our communities saw the aldermen who understand the program and use it successfully to create jobs, I don't think we would have such a negative spin on it. So I think that there are some good things that we can do with this program. But, I just believe that we've got to be able to create jobs. That's number one. We've got to be able to create jobs. That's number two. And we've got to be able to create jobs. That's number three. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And as Congressman, I'm going to do everything in my power to support the creation of real, sustainable employment opportunities for folks in our district, especially those who are hurting the most. Patrick Brutus will do that. Patrick Brutus has done that. Patrick Brutus will continue to do that after this election. After I serve in Congress for an unlimited time where I can develop a pipeline of leadership for young folk to then replace us, because there's always someone with great ideas that's coming next, and we have to nurture them, identify them, develop them, and put them in a position to win for our community. That's number one. That's number four. That's number 1A. It's on the whiteboard. Rhea, we've just got to do better.
Let me ask you one final question before I let you give your closing statement and how people can reach you. Because we have such a multi-leveled system of politics here, how would you, as U.S. Congressman, work with your more local and state officials to get what's in your district working?
Right. The first thing we got to do is, obviously, once we win, we've got to reconnect and establish a relationship with all of our local elected officials, whether that be the aldermen in the city portion, the committeemen, the mayors and managers of all these, Southtown and Southland and county board people. We need to, which we're doing right now, we're talking to these folks, but we need to now have that formal relationship. We have to get in alignment. When your car's out of balance and you're shaking to the right or shaking to the left, we've got to get in alignment so that we all, again, I want to go back to my proposal of creating a regional economic development strategy for the entire district. That's very important. We have to be on the same page. We have to be looking at how do we utilize the transportation, distribution, and logistics in the Southland and the agriculture industry that exists in Will County. How do we now synergize that with what's going on in the South suburbs, and how do we connect that to the end user in a way to creating jobs for those in the city who are the most impacted by the bad policies that we see today? We've got to get everybody in the same line of thinking so that we are looking at how do we focus on improving this district? How do we focus on improving our neighborhoods? How do we focus on improving those who are most adversely affected by, the changes that we've seen over the years that really haven't done enough for us today? That's how I would work with these guys. And they're all, some great people. They've got a lot of experience. But again, I think that leadership is very important in this component of how we look at how do we work together. We can't do it alone. We know that. But it's got to be something that we all get in alignment. And I think right now we're seeing it disjointed in a lot of different areas of government where folks aren't working together necessarily. And again, I mentioned this earlier, we have this isolation where we're all kind of working separately. And that just doesn't benefit anybody really.
Now, how do any people that are interested in donating to your campaign and learning more about you, how do they get in touch with you? So,
again, thank you very much for this opportunity to come and talk to your audience
today.
You're
very welcome.
Those who are listening online and those who are watching right now streaming. We're looking to continue to build out our voter base. Now, I'll tell you what, we canvassed during the signature gathering part. We collected the most signatures out of anybody. We collected 6,137 signatures. We only needed 1,314 to get on the ballot. We were not challenged. So for us, we had our team out there talking to about 8,000 people. So for me, we are tracking at 75%, and we know that people are hearing and excited about the possibility of a new congressman representing them with the kind of tangible experience that we need today to move the district forward. Now, if you're interested in joining our campaign, and we need your help, we need your time, your talent, your treasure. We need that. We need your assistance. You can reach us at www.brutus, BRUTUS 4 Congress, Brutus 4 FOR Congress.com. You can hit us up on Twitter at Brutus 4 with a number 4 Congress. You can also reach us on Facebook, Brutus for Congress. It's not too difficult. Brutus for Congress. And you can also call our 800 number, 1-888, our toll-free number, 888-500-8709. So there's multiple ways you can reach us. We're excited about the opportunity that any one of you want to work with us to make sure that together we advance the goals that we all have and have had for a long time to move this district forward, to reach a level of equivalency with other areas of this great state. But certainly we need to have a leg up so that we all come up together.
And with that, I thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing how this campaign plays out.
We're excited about it, and we hope to see you at the finish line with us.
This is a battle that needs to be fought, needs to be won.
Absolutely.
And with that, we are at the end of our Straight No Chaser show time. So, Mr. Earl, you can hit our music. And he is like, yes, I will.
Yeah, Earl, hit the beat.
Hit the
Earl,
beat,
come on, Earl,
Earl.
hit the beat.
And our tagline is always, dedicate yourself to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris, signing off. Peace and love, everyone.
It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, to no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.